New today, Fox 45 News continues to press state and local leaders for answers following our shocking Project Baltimore report. A city student who's passed just 3 classes in 4 years is ranked near the top half of its class at Augusta Fells. Since our first report Monday night, our story has made headlines across the globe. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Here's the latest on our investigation. Fox 45 News obtains a letter to elected officials with talking points about Project Baltimore's story. We've also learned Baltimore City Schools has known for almost 2 years about problems at this city high school. There's also an ongoing investigation into Augusta Fells Savage Institute of Visual Arts, an investigation that includes more than just one student.
We have team coverage as our reporters cover every aspect of this story. We start with Amy Simpson. Amy uncovered the investigation and the talking points letter sent to elected leaders. Amy?
Kai, internal documents we obtained today cite both irregularities and inconsistencies at this school dating back to at least 2019.
2 documents shining a light on damage control happening behind the scenes at Baltimore City Schools. The memos obtained by Fox 45 News, both on official letterhead, sharing details about an investigation into improper staff conduct at Augusta Fells Savage, and mentioning a recent news story about a student at the school. An email was sent to both city and state elected officials in the last 24 hours. The note mentions Fox 45 News and Project Baltimore, describing one attachment as talking points, indicating that many city and state leaders are being questioned. This talking points memo says city schools began investigating Augusta Fells Savage in 2019. The investigation is ongoing and says both irregularities in course scheduling and inconsistencies in enrollment and grading triggered the probe. Again today, we spent time contacting members of Baltimore City Council.
Please leave your name, number, and a detailed message.
Making calls, leaving messages.
Calling from Fox 45.
Again, asking every member of the city's education committee to discuss this city high school being investigated for systemic failures.
And along with that talking points memo, a letter was also sent out to city schools, families, and staff today from the CEO of the school system. That letter specifically mentions a recent news story about a student at Augusta Fells Savage.
Go to Riel Creighton. She joins us live to show us how failing city schools are impacting the decision to move and stay in Baltimore City. Riel?
Mary, Baltimore City, you can just look at the numbers. It is shrinking, and no doubt there are many factors at play, but at least some are pointing to how poorly Baltimore City schools are performing as one of them.
For so many, it was a stunning revelation. A Project Baltimore investigation, one student, one school failing.
The school failed him.
But Fox 45 News has learned in Baltimore City Public Schools, there's more to examine.
I have seen challenges with people who are looking to relocate to Baltimore with the school system.
Leon Robinson is a real estate agent. Homes are selling, but when it comes to people from outside the city looking to move in, city schools, he says, often a roadblock.
There's a lot of up-and-coming areas in Baltimore that are being, revitalized. However, the challenges with people coming in that's trying to relocate is, what are the good schools?
Those challenges front and center. According to greatschools.org, in comparison to the rest of the state, 82% of Baltimore City schools performing below average. A snapshot of high schools, few are highly rated.
There's so many disruptions going on in the classroom that actual time where there's something being taught is very minimal.
Alethea Bowers saw 4 of her kids go through the school system. She relates deeply to this mother in Project Baltimore's investigation. Her 19-year-old is also failing, though in her case, the school did try to intervene. Still, she's considering moving so that her 7-year-old who excels will be on a different path, because finding the right public schools in the city has been one of the hardest tests.
I always tried to pick the best that I could, which it really wasn't. It was like the lesser of 2 evils a lot of times.
And the realtor that you heard from, Leon Robinson, says that the biggest challenge, of course, is the schools, but the biggest concern that he actually hears from prospective clients is actually about safety in the city.
Listen, Mackenzie Frost is questioning lawmakers, asking who's responsible for the situation uncovered in Baltimore City Public Schools.
Mackenzie is live right now in the State House. And Mackenzie, what are you hearing?
Mary Kay, the city of Baltimore and voters in this city have more than 20 people elected to serve here in the State House and advocate on their behalf. Today, very few of them are willing to talk about Project Baltimore's latest report.
Leaders in the General Assembly elected by voters today were demanding answers from all 22 members from the city. The House delegation, 16 members. Is the state responsible for oversight of these schools? Will they request an investigation? I sent emails to each one and not one responded. The 6 members of the Senate delegation a bit more responsive.
I think that we need to make sure that we do an investigation from a school standpoint.
Senator Corey McCray says he's disheartened to hear about students not getting the education they deserve in Baltimore City Public Schools.
We need to make sure that each and every parent, the neighborhoods, the legislative leaders, the city council leaders, all are aware of it. And we need to make sure that we have every control in place to make sure that this does not happen.
I tracked down Senator Mary Washington after session inside the State House, first telling me,
I haven't seen that report, I'm sorry.
And then,
again, for all school systems, all of our local school systems have accountability measures, and I'm very confident in whether it's Baltimore City or Baltimore County or Anne Arundel County, I'm confident that their boards will take appropriate action.
But the Baltimore City Schools Board of Commissioners refusing to answer questions from Fox 45 News. As for leadership inside the State House for Education, I sent emails to the chair and vice chair of the Senate Education Committee Tuesday. Chairman Paul Pinsky not responding, even after another email today. Vice Chair Cheryl Kagan's office telling me her schedule was too packed.
Some of the other lawmakers in their office telling me to reach out to them directly. I was just talking to Senator Jill Carter by text message and asking her for a statement, but so far I've been ignored.
Our report. Keith Daniels spoke with crisis communications experts and joins us live with more on an assessment of that strategy. Keith?
Well, Kyle, those talking points are part of the internal documents that we obtained, and tonight we're taking a closer look at them, whether they are actual signs of change or just good PR. Tonight, the Baltimore City School District could be on the defense after Fox 45 obtained internal documents that cite irregularities and inconsistencies at Augusta Fells Savage, dating back to at least 2019. Rob Weinhold,
and it seems as if the school system failed the student and his family on multiple fronts,
is a crisis leadership expert at the Falston Group. He believes school officials are seemingly trying to control the narrative of an alarming Project Baltimore investigation involving a failing 17-year-old student. The documents include this letter sent to both families and staff, providing some of the events surrounding the investigation. The letter was also shared with Baltimore City Council members and some state legislators, along with a memo provided as talking points should they be questioned by the media.
Clearly, there's an attempt to control the narrative and also provide information. But I believe you don't spin your way through crisis, you lead your way through crisis.
Amy Rotenberg,
my approach to crisis management is not spin.
Of Rotenberg Associates, is a crisis communication specialist who is also measuring the optics of those documents sent by school officials.
There's nothing wrong with trying to make sure that your narrative gets out there. What is important, though, is that you are offering up to the public and to your stakeholders what are the facts.
Among the facts, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, Baltimore City Public Schools is the 5th most funded of America's 100 largest school districts. 73% of its funding comes from state taxpayers. Meanwhile, enrollment is down by more than 5,000 students from 2015 to 2019. And now, a dismal report about a failing teen at a Baltimore City high school. Well, we asked Baltimore City School Board members about that project report. We wanted a comment from them. We reached out to them yesterday. We got a response today. In short, it says the board has been informed of the matter and will coordinate with the CEO and her team to ensure they do what's best for students.
Fox 45 News, Project Baltimore, shining light on failure in Baltimore City Public Schools. The failure of a student and a student body.
Probably will start crying like my son is. I don't know what to do for him.
It's not just one story.
Regardless of whether you had passing grades, they move you on to the next grade. The catch up was hard.
This mother's 19-year-old son facing an identical scenario in another Baltimore City school. Project Baltimore's investigation showing a 17-year-old passing just 3 courses in 4 years, many others failing too. Fox 45 News asking what happens now.
The number of kids who need help is significant.
Kim Trueheart is a child advocate who works closely with a Baltimore City school. At this point, and for these kids left behind, she says there are few options left.
The system has just pushed the problem down the road. So now you have this 4-year problem that has come due. And is the system in a position 4 years later to do something? No.
Project Baltimore reporting school officials wanted the 17-year-old at the heart of their investigation to start over, back to the 9th grade. His mother instead opting to remove him and place him in an accelerated program.
They're not going to remove him from the role until either he ages out or he gets a certain number of absences.
For Bauer's son, she's looking toward a GED. We asked city schools, what is the protocol? Where does a child go who is flunking years in but gets moved along? On that question, we're still waiting to hear back.